Stick around. Morning, everybody. A lot to get through. Fox News alert now, and the deadly chaos continues in Kiev. This is the latest image we now have from Ukraine. At least 26 are dead, hundreds more injured as the anti-government protests continue in this tug-of-war between Russia and the West. A live report from there on the ground in a matter of minutes.
All right, a Fox News alert now and a warning for Americans who are in Ukraine to stay indoors as the violence escalates in Kiev yet again. The worst yet in Ukraine since the anti-government protests began back in November. Riot police trying to break up thousands of people coming out in Independence Square. At least 26 people have been killed in the recent days in this confrontation. More than 240 have been injured in the clashes with the police. There were new explosions overnight. Protesters throwing fireworks and petrol bombs. The police in their armored vehicles striking back with stun grenades and water cannons. Look at the scene in the streets of Kiev as we watch all this play out. The demonstrators refusing to leave after 3 months of protests there that have now paralyzed the capital. Amy Kellogg is live from Moscow for us this morning. So, Amy, what's the latest?
Well, the latest, Martha, is that after some hours of relative calm, after all of the drama of last night, it seems that the clashes are picking up again, and the flames from the fires we saw are still going, although not to the extent they were last night. And basically what is going on in Kiev is really just this. I mean, the city is being increasingly shut off, roads are being closed, the subway is shut down, and a lot of the stores are closed. These demonstrations are starting to pick up in other cities of the country as well. Now, the fires we saw last night were actually a flame around the protesters to keep the police back. At least 26 people are dead, and there are varying reports about just the extent to which each side is armed in this conflict. While it is way too simple to say that the conflict in Ukraine, Martha, is divided along east-west lines, it is not too simple to say that the blame being apportioned for the bloodshed is breaking down that way, with Western countries saying that it is the responsibility of the Ukrainian government to keep the peace and to keep the police from using heavy-handed tactics, while the Ukrainian government naturally and the Kremlin saying that it's the blame of radical extremist protesters for what's been going on. And of course, as we've been reporting, Martha, Ukraine is caught choosing between a Western pattern and sticking more in the Soviet orbit. But unfortunately, many people are saying they shouldn't have to be in a position of choosing 25 years after the Cold War ended. Martha?
So you're in Moscow. That obviously is where the government backs the Ukrainian president. What about the opposition leaders at this point? What are they doing?
Well, and to just bring you up to speed on what's going on in Moscow, the Kremlin has now said that it is going to suspend the financial aid, which was really the sweetener for Ukraine to stay in the Russian orbit. That aid had been slowly released on Monday, and there was a lot of speculation that that was why this move on the protesters so violently happened last night, because Russia would have expected that if it was giving money, Ukraine would have been able, the government would have been able to keep the protesters under control. Now, the West, as you asked, Martha, Western countries, the European Commission is talking about some sort of targeted sanctions against the Ukrainian leadership. And Secretary of State John Kerry is expected, the reporting now is, to announce that the U.S. is open to some sort of sanctions as well. But again, as we have seen this violence flare really peaking after 3 months of ebbing and flowing on the streets of Kiev, words of warning, which we've heard from the U.S. Vice President last night, are simply not enough. There's very little, it seems, that the West can do immediately, Martha.
Quite a story. Amy, thank you very much. So the White House is condemning this violence in Ukraine. Here is Press Secretary Jay Carney on that.
We are appalled by the violence that was already taking place in downtown Kiev and reports of armed riot police massing on the edge of Maidan. We continue to condemn street violence and excessive use of force by either side. Force will not resolve the crisis.
So the Obama administration urging the Ukrainian government to exercise restraint. Obviously, this is an incredibly volatile situation, and you think about Vladimir Putin cheering on his team at the Olympics while this situation is blowing up in Kiev. It's extraordinary.
You just mentioned the White House reaction. There's reaction from Paris as well coming in right now, so we're going to watch this throughout the day and see where it goes. Those nighttime images are stunning.
Indeed.